We are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to another episode of A Blether with. Hope you're hanging down tonight because, well, in Inverurie anyway, it's blowy and it's wet and it's pretty mocky and miserable. So grab yourself a dram to warm yourself up. How about you, Kat? What's the weather like away up in tropical Huntly?
It's just much the same, but it's like sleet that we've got. Like it's almost snow. I'm just so over winter now. It's just, I'm done. Let's just get some sunshine.
Yeah.
It's so dark as well today. Although when I was driving home yesterday, I was stuck behind 3 ducks that were swimming up the roadside, which was, and you know it's rained a lot when you're stuck behind ducks swimming up the road.
Country like, yeah.
But I'd slowed down. I was behind them. I was kind of gently herding them. And this guy thought I'd stopped because Glendronach was just on my right. So I think he thought I was a tourist. So he pulled out and just tanked past me. And the bow wave that he created for these ducks, they tipped them all over. Like, the poor things. But I was like, you stupid idiot. So the poor little ducks, they were okay. They got onto the grass verge after, but I thought I better leave them alone because I'm just actually more of a hazard to these ducks. But I was just quite
and to everyone else on the road.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah.
man. Oh, that's funny. Well, that's a lot cheerier. That is the cheery side to miserable weather, isn't it?
Knocking ducks off the roadside.
Oh dear. Good evening, everybody at home. I hope you enjoyed that wee story. Dave is here on YouTube, as is Petehead. Good evening, guys. Willis on Facebook. Hello to everyone else who's watching. Please keep the comments coming. We'd love to hear from you. And any questions for our guests tonight, please fire them in the chat. Let us know what you want to know. But first of all, let us know what's in your glass. Good evening, Rick from San Francisco. Hello to you. Dave has got the Lochley cask strength. Great whiskey. Love that one. Loved our chat as well with John Campbell. That was just about the time that it was released. I think we had John on.
We did. That was a great chat. I'm trying to think how long ago that was.
I think it's pushing a year. It must be pushing a year. I think it was the start of summer last year the batch strength came out.
It must be. Gosh, that's another year. It's another anniversary to celebrate as well then.
Woohoo. Yeah. Before we invite the guests on, Kat, what's in your glass?
Well, I should pre-warn everybody, my internet is shocking tonight, so I'm probably going to talk over everybody and be about 10 minutes behind every joke, but...
You normally are.
I know. It's awful, isn't it? I've got to go on brand tonight, so I've got my Ardray. And you know, I forgot what pretty bottle this was. I'm going to ask Stephanie and Richard about what went into the bottle because I absolutely love this bottle. It's really, really nice. You know, I like a nice bottle, so I'm impressed with this one.
You do. You are a sucker for a nice bottle.
Well, I know, I'm so easily won over.
Willis is having the Drambusters Bethnal release. I didn't get my hands on it, but I heard great things about that. I'm sure that's a banging whiskey. I just cracked open the 17-year-old from our favourite distillery in Old Meldrum, the Glengarry. So 17-year-old Renaissance, sherry, bourbon combo. My favourite of the 4. I know you're a 16 fangirl, aren't you?
Yeah, I like the 16.
But that's what makes us different. So that's what's in my glass. I hope everyone had a wee dram when I showed you that. We are going to be talking a little bit about Glengarry, I'm sure, tonight. So
it's hardly ever mentioned week by week. We should talk about it more.
I'm venturing into my new glass. I got one of the amber glasses. It does exactly the same as any other glass, but it's got a really funky stem.
That's cool. Very pretty.
Useless bit of information for everyone at home. Right, let's get on our guests because we're waffling on enough. Let's bring on. We've got Stephanie and Richard. Let's hope it's cool. It says add to stage when I click on it. And Stephanie, you're trained in the treading the boards, aren't you? So
Hi, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hi guys, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.
Yeah. Suffering the same weather as you, Kat, but other end of the country.
Have you had any duck-related near misses?
No, not duck. Although there's so many potholes around me, I'm surprised we haven't got ducks swimming in them. They're so big. But
It's awful,
yeah,
isn't it? We're the same in Inverurie. There's like a sort of ongoing it's like saga of a car park just up the road, and the pothole keeps getting bigger. Like literally, people put cones in, but the traffic cones are sinking because the hole is so big. It's like become a sinkhole. So it's like consuming people's conversation in Inverurie just
wow.
now.
You can't park a Mini in that car park because a Mini will disappear down this hole. So,
Nice
guys, we've got to ask. I think I know. Certainly, looking at Stephanie's backdrop, I think I know what the answer is going to be. But what's in your glass tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I am on brand. I as a brand ambassador, you've always got to be on brand, right? So yeah, I do have Ardray in the glass tonight.
Awesome. And Richard, you said, I just noticed you've got the bottle in the corner there. Are you on brand as well?
Yeah, I am tonight. Although I was tempted. I've been dabbling in Indian single malts recently, so I was tempted to try one of those again tonight. But as we're talking Ardray, I thought I'd have a glass of it.
Yeah. Well, it is the week of International Whiskey Day, so
It is.
Why not have a wee dram from India? Which one is it? Is it Amrut or Paul John? Or
No, I got a couple here actually. One's Ardray,
yeah.
and then the other one. What's the other one I've got? Yeah, Kamet.
Kamet. No, I've not heard of that one.
No, it's quite. Yeah, they're all quite young, but they're quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess Indian whiskey tends to have to be quite young, doesn't it? They lose so much, like it's up to 10%.
Yeah, it evaporates if you just look at it, I think. So yeah, they got about 10% angel share a year or something compared to what 2 in Scotland normally.
Yeah, it's something crazy.
Yeah,
talking about angels. Here's a little guy who's going to go to his bed. Hello, hello, everybody.
Hi, Ken.
One day you'll be sitting here having a dram with us, won't you?
Oh,
yeah, definitely. Right.
Right. So
just graduated from the sensory class as well. He had a little wee cap and gown and everything on the other day, didn't he?
Yeah. He's he's more qualified than his dad. I never graduated from anything. And, hey.
Yeah.
Future master blender.
Is he a regular?
He's a regular. Yeah. Bedtime. Well, he has his bath, and then he gets. He comes in and say good night to everybody.
He's coming for his nightcap.
Don't push buttons because that's when things break. Bye-bye.
So this is going to be a weird chat because obviously me and you work together, Richard. So this is going to be it's like work but different work. So we should maybe start with Go on.
Yeah, it's a work blether.
It is. I'm just not dressed in a gilet with a tartan scarf. But we should maybe be. It's a look. Do you know what? It's a look that's worked for 6 years. I'm going to stick to it. But yeah, we should maybe explain who you guys both are. So will we start with you, Richard, just because I'm speaking about you first, and you can give us your job title and middle name and shoe size.
Shoe size is 11. So big feet. I mean, I have a dreadfully long sort of corporate job title. It's sort of senior director,
awesome
consumer strategy and innovation. I mean, it's kind of I need an A4 business card just to fit it all on. But basically, what I get paid to do is to develop ideas. So whether they're new brands or new propositions or new products. So I work with a great team of innovation managers and at Beam Suntory. So responsible for our Scotch and Irish portfolio. So new products on Laphroaig, Bowmore, Auchentoshan, the wonderful Glengarry, and then things like Teachers. And more recently, was responsible for creating our new blended Scotch, Ardray. And that's how I got to know Steph. So over to you, Steph.
Hi everybody. I'm Ardray's brand ambassador in the UK. So I joined the team exactly a year ago, because as we were just saying, Kat, it is a year anniversary since we got to come and visit the lovely Glengarry and meet yourself. And yeah, I obviously joined the team ahead of the launch, so we had some time for me to get to know the brand and also help with the launch event and things like that. And then yeah, I've been all around the UK sharing the news of Ardray and chatting about it. So yeah.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
I'm just because of your lag, Kat, I'm going to just wait a second and let you kind of catch up, because
That's why I was waiting, because I thought, is Mike ready to say something? I'm going to wait a second. I'm always going to be
we're going to have a lot of awkward silences today. It won't be awkward. There'll be silences today.
That's right.
So that's pretty cool that you've both been involved since before the beginning of the launch, I guess. So you both had input into.
I was right at the start. I was given a blank sheet of paper.
And that must be pretty exciting. That must be cool.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, there was. We wanted to create a blended Scotch. We have a fantastic portfolio of single malts, but there's a huge blending heritage in our business, not only in Scotland but also in Japan. So Suntory whiskies in Japan, so Yamazaki, Hakushu, Hibiki. And yeah, I was given a blank sheet of paper and asked to sort of pull a group of people together and create a new whiskey. Sadly, I got that brief literally a week before COVID hit. So we had to do the whole thing during COVID, which was pretty fun.
Which is great, because you didn't have to drive anywhere. So
no, that's true. Cool. That's true. The postman thought I was mad because I kept getting loads of these little bottles of samples arriving, sort of 50 at a time. So that was quite entertaining.
How do you start off a project like that? Do you look at an end game and think, this is the kind of whiskey I want to make, or does it twist and turn along the way?
I think the first reaction is panic, but then when you get over that, we start with the blenders and start discussing why we want to do it. And like I said, there's a kind of blending's at the heart of our business. So everything that we produce in Scotland that is not a single cask is effectively blended in some way or other. And Japanese whiskey is even more focused on blending. So the history of Japan is obviously they didn't have as many distilleries. When Yamazaki opened, it was the only distillery. So they set up in a different way. So in Japan, what you'll find is like Yamazaki has 4 different styles of still. They produce about 40 different styles of single malt at Yamazaki.
Okay. And
they blend those to create their final product. So there's this huge heritage in blending in both sides of our business in Scotland and in Japan. And I guess where we started was, blends seem to have come off the radar for a lot of people. It's like, we'd go into bars and you'd get a long list of scotches and a long list of bourbons, Japanese and Irish and world whiskies, which is all fantastic. And then you'd get like 4 blends. And it was just kind of this thought of, well, hang on, blends are what made Scotch famous around the world. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should do something to kind of, shine a light on actually how amazing blends can be. And that's kind of where the idea started. And then we kind of got into it and started talking, and the whole idea for creating a Scotch, but using the Japanese blenders to kind of, I guess, cast a fresh perspective onto it was kind of where we started. So yeah, I mean, these things sort of happen over conversations and discussions, and you try out different ideas, and you start to sort of crystallize one that feels like everybody's got some heart in it and some passion for it, and that's where it started.
It's pretty cool. I just love that idea that you've got that blank bit of paper, and you're like, you know what? There you go. This is your task. And I mean, I have a hard enough time picking whiskies from already bottled when I've got the pretty bottles of the market and then the fancy story behind it and whatnot. And it's like, will that sell? Will we take that? But to go right back to the start, I think is, and I think the guys at home, I think this is a really interesting story to tell. Is just how does that, because we all talk about whiskies that we know and we love, and maybe a new launch, but it's from a distillery or somebody we recognise. But Ardray it's nothing we've seen before, and it's relatively new kind of concept.
Yeah, we launched when we launched. Steph, must have been June.
So it's been in market. The launch event was right at the end of June, so it's been in market since July.
Yeah. But
and
yeah,
where can you guys pick this up? Where can the guys at home buy Ardray?
Well, Inverurie Whiskey Shop, hopefully.
I'm taking it. We should have it. I mean, most of our beef, so we have a direct account with Glengarry, so we get from there.
But if not, it's on all the major like online retailers. It's on ardray.com. You can buy direct from there in the UK. And then it's also available in LA, New York, and Shanghai currently,
Cool.
globally. But yeah,
awesome.
But yeah, I mean,
this must be.
Go on.
I was just going to say, you guys must be the only example of this out there. Like, it's a sort of collaboration between Scotland and Japan. Like, there's surely nothing else like that out there. Like, it's quite unique in what it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, I think that, like, to your point, Mike, is when you're creating something from scratch, you've kind of got to think about what your strengths are and do something that's in your wheelhouse. And for us, it's like we have these incredible team of blenders. You know, you've got the team in Japan, in Suntory, led by Shinji Fukuyo, who, you know, they craft some amazing whiskies. And then we've got the team in Scotland, led by a guy called Callum Fraser, who, again, makes some amazing whiskies. And it's kind of like, well, they're both blended sets of blenders. It's kind of, why wouldn't we bring the two together and see what happens? And that really was the sort of genesis of the idea. And then it kind of, everything evolves from there, really. You start sort of feeding into it. But it was a 3-year journey. So as I say, I started the whole thing in January 2020, and we didn't launch till June of 2023.
Was there ever a temptation to mix the two country whiskies together? Was it ever, let's make a blended world whiskey?
Well, Suntory actually do a world whiskey. It's called AO, which combines whiskies from America, Canada, Ireland, Scotland, and Japan. But Scotch is the heart of everything. So I don't know how many people know it, but like Japanese whiskey was basically, the whole category of Japanese whiskey was started by Shinjiro Tori, who's the founder of Suntory. Shinjiro Tori, who is the founder of Suntory, but he was inspired by Scotch, and a lot of how they make whiskey in Japan is derived from Scotland. So the kind of thinking was, actually, we want to go back to that root. We want to celebrate that joint start point. So that's kind of what led us to say, right, we're going to make a blended Scotch. We really want to put the spotlight back on how good blends can be, and the idea that single malts are great, but with blends you can get something different. It's not one thing is better than the other, but they're different, and we kind of wanted to shine a light again on blends.
So Stephanie, I guess that's where you come in a little bit with your role. Is it a part of your role, like educating as well, getting that negative connotation about blends kind of out of people's, getting that removed first and get them to try it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there is. I'm definitely finding there's a certain amount of preconceptions. Not always bad preconceptions, but there is a certain amount of preconceptions about blended Scotch. And yeah, I find it really interesting because obviously blends have this massive history, and it is, as Richard said, it's just offering you a different drinking experience. And actually, when you look at loads of other things we experience in life, tea, perfume, champagne, cognac, like blends are premium and appreciate, you know, and that kind of artistry of blending is really celebrated in other categories. And we kind of only find it in more recent years that with Scotch, there's this kind of more negative sort of preconception. So yeah, a big part of mine is going out there and sort of educating, but I like to educate in that kind of really conversational way and just ask people why they have these preconceptions and chat about it, and just discuss and chat and kind of challenge and kind of bring that to it. The whiskey show for me was a really interesting one because actually I do think it is changing, and there were a real large portion of the audience at the whiskey show who were curious and really open-minded and they were very flavor driven, and so they were really wanting to try something new. But there was still this kind of section of kind of whiskey drinkers who kind of, you know, put their hand on their glass as if I was going to contaminate it with my blend.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of gone through that period, and I guess that there's the whiskey industry in itself to blame largely, kind of 70s, 80s, 90s when malt was. But I think it started off as blends are good, but malts are better.
Yeah.
And that grew into malts are great and blends are crap. It just kind of the gap kind of grew and grew and grew, didn't it? And then the value of blends, you know, when people start looking at the money side of things, you're like, well, you know, why would something so cheap be good? I'd rather spend double the amount on something, and that just further enhanced. We're seeing a lot of blends coming back, or hitting the shelf, guys.
There's some fantastic ones out there.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is if people can get something that's consistent, because as a single malt fan, you kind of get drawn down that single cask route. You want something big and bold and high alcohol. But these guys, you don't get the consistency with them. You know, it's a one-off bottling, and you don't. Yeah. And people like that fallback. There's something that's reliable, and I think that's where blends can really step in and say, you know, we're going to taste the same every time you pick us up.
And you know what? You know what, Mike? I love single cask expressions, and I love things that. And you're so right. Like they are special that because they are big and characterful, and they are that expression of a place. And there's a time, right, where you want that, and you want something really big, and you know, whether it be super peaty or like sherry or whatever it is. But I just think, for me, blends offer just that different, because you are bringing these complex flavors together. You get this sort of journey on the palate. So for something, if you are sat around with friends having a blether, you know, just putting the world to rights, a blend really sits in that really beautiful place because it can give you character, but it's this kind of journey. So you know, you'll be sipping through it, and suddenly it can start sort of with some nice fresh sort of top citrusy notes, but as you're chatting through, you start getting these different notes and complexity, and you can all discover different things. So for me, it's just different categories and different things for different times. And when people just dismiss a whole category, whether that be blends or world whiskey or, you know, Indian whiskey or whatever, I just think it's a real shame, because I think there's loads to be discovered.
But you're right. I mean, I think blends went through that period where they tended to be associated more with the cheap blends.
Yeah.
But you know, we all know that we've all bought cheap whiskey before and regretted it. But it's kind of, I think what's really interesting is, you know, as Steph said, is that ability to actually expand the palate that the whiskey maker has. So you can, in the same bottle, you can combine peated and unpeated, and sherry and bourbon cask, and malt whiskey and grain whiskey, and all of those bring something different to it. I think, you know, it offers something different. So, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is just offer something different and let people see if they enjoy it or not.
Super.
I mean, we're obviously not going to reveal what the secret recipe is, but you guys are working with some amazing whiskies to create Ardray anyway, so you can imagine it's going to be
Yeah,
an interesting dram.
We get asked that question a lot, don't we, Steph? What's in the bottle?
I didn't ask it.
You know what?
I'm going to ask it. What's
always
in the
now
bottle?
say, like, go to Callum.
No,
Because somebody, they coined, the master blender's answer is like a politician's answer. So now, from now on, I'm like,
yes.
let's ask the master blender.
Yeah. I mean, some people do. It's like Compass Box are famous for listing everything in detail, what's in it. I think for me, we took a decision not to, because we kind of felt like a blend it's like a piece of art. You know, the blenders they have a vision, they're putting pieces together. You don't go and ask a painter what shade of yellow they used. It's kind of, you would just enjoy what they put on the canvas kind of thing. And so we kind of took that approach. But yeah, we were lucky, Kat. I mean, we work for Beam Suntory, so we've got some great single malts in our estate. Bowmore, Lefroy, Glengarry, Auchentoshan, Ardmore up in the Highlands near Glengarry as well. And then we also, for this, had access to Edrington's estate. And Edrington are owners of the Macallan, Highland Park, and Glenrothes, and also North British grain distilleries. So we had some great, toys to play with in creating this.
It sounds like such. I mean, being a fan of, and Kat and the guys at home will know how much of a fan of Ardmore I am. In single casket and from independent bottlers. I feel, I don't know if you're involved in the legacy being put together, but
yeah,
I feel that undersells the brand or the spirit personally. But I'm a huge fan of the place and the distillery. Try and get there as often as I can. Glengarry, again, I really, it's not me being tied to local. I genuinely enjoy a lot of what Glengarry do, and then you add these guys too, like the big names that probably everyone will know is the Lefroys and the Bowmores, the Macallan, the Highland Park. It just sounds like you almost can't go wrong. But I mean, that's not always the case. But it sounds like you've got all the recipes for a great.
Well, we had, during the process, I think we developed over 200 prototype blends.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And honestly, Mike, you can go wrong even with those whiskies.
It's one of the stories we hear, and everyone's heard the phrase, there's no such thing as a bad whiskey. There's always just one's better than others. But I also, you do get bad whiskey. It is out there. Yeah.
But that's the art of the blender. I mean, that's what amazed me was, I was sat at home during COVID with all these little bottles lined up doing online tastings with the blenders, and the difference between them and the skill that they brought by sort of working out the balance, this really subtle balance between the whiskeys, sort of down to 1/10%, in terms of each of the different components is just phenomenal. And actually, Steph, we were, when Steph and the other ambassadors were coming on board, we were a bit cruel to them. I'll let you tell the story, Steph, about your own blending experience.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, we had a wonderful trip. Obviously, being a new brand, often traditionally as a brand ambassador, you'd be joining, a heritage brand, right? So you already know certain stories and histories and things like that. So obviously for us, it was a completely different experience, which was wonderful because you don't get to do this really, launching a new brand. So it's amazing. So we had a wonderful trip all together. So the brand ambassadors from America and China and myself, and we got to learn about it, which was wonderful. And so Callum Fraser and Shinji Fukuyo, the two blenders from Japan and Scotland, led us on different masterclasses and workshops. And so we got to try sort of different flavor blocks at cask strength. So when they've got all the component blocks, they sort of blend them into sort of 4 blends first. into these sort of categorized, you know, the blend of the different grain components and the slightly lighter malt components, the richer malt components, the peated malt components, you know. So we got to try them at cask strength, which was amazing. And then the both of them led us all in a workshop where we got to blend our own blend. And I was really nervous. And I remember Richard and some of the other team passing around being like, just have fun, Steph, have fun. So I was like, okay, you don't get to do this every day. So, you know, using the components, having fun, a couple of drams in. And I just thought that was going to be it. Get to take my bottle home, show my husband. And right at the end, we all had to give our bottles to Shinji and Callum, who then tasted them all and gave us notes. And I was like, no.
Yeah, we sprung it on them.
They were both, as you'd expect, total gentlemen, and both found something nice to say in all of ours. Even though I'm not sure I totally believe them.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. We Todd Ryan, who's watching at home on YouTube, has put a comment there. So we did we run a whiskey academy twice a year, where we get guys up to the Aberdeenshire, and we kind of try and get to as many distilleries. Cat very kindly lets us into Ardmore and Glengarry. But part of the course, and the first time we did it in March, was a blending masterclass with Ian Forteeth from Glencadam and Tom and Towel. So Ian came along with a target blend, and you know, he gave us the components. So there was 9 different whiskeys. So he blended the malt together. I think there was 22 malts in there. So he did that part of it. But we had an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 9-year-old malt, I think. And then the peated components, that was a 3-year-old, 3 different ages and different peat levels. And then there was the grain components. Again, 3 different styles. And the guys were split into teams, and they had to match Ian's target blend. So Toz was saying there, it was one of the best experiences of the week. He does say, no offense, Kat, your tours were great, but and it started off quite fun. I didn't get involved in that side of it. I just kind of watched and took photos and chatted to the guys as they're doing it. The level of concentration you could just see as the afternoon went on, it just went up. And I expected it to be the other way around. I expected them to be like really serious to start with, and then they were tasting. As they tasted, it went down. But actually, the competitive edge came out, and they're like, no, let's. And the teamwork came out. It was such a great experience to sit and watch these guys work on it.
What amazes me is they do most of their work without tasting. It's all through nosing.
All on the nose. Yeah,
it's incredible. I mean, it is a phenomenal skill, and that's kind of what. Yeah, I mean, that's what we wanted to celebrate, is that skill. It's the art. I mean, literally is the art of blending. I mean, it's an amazing talent. So we kind of wanted to highlight that.
We've got some great. I mean, I don't think I've tried it yet. Kat hasn't been kind enough to take over a dram for me.
Sorry, okay.
Play a little violin. Yeah. I know. I mean, I should just dip into my pocket and buy a bottle. That'd be much easier. But
we'll make sure you get some to try, mate. That's my job.
Well, come and visit us, and get us stocked. That'd be great. I'm just going to look back. We've had some great comments coming in from the guys at home, but we are missing out because you guys are giving us so much information.
Yeah.
Dave Action is asking for a price. How much would somebody expect to pay for Ardray?
In the UK, it's £60. Which, that's one of our challenges. I mean, Ardray, if you see it on the shelf, it's non-age statement. So there's no age on it. It's not a cheap bottle, but hopefully you get what you pay for in it. I mean, there's some great drams in it. I mean, the age of the whiskies vary from 7 through to 20.
Right.
And that's part of the challenge is, the sort of the age rules in Scotch is you can only put the age of the youngest whiskey. Whereas, what we didn't want to do was sort of underplay actually what we think the quality is by putting 7 on it. So we've deliberately left it off. But hopefully, you get the full taste. I mean, it's a relatively high ABV. It's 48%. It's all non-chill filtered. So you're getting the full character of those whiskies in there. And you get, with a blend, I mean, that's the wonderful thing. You get this balance of these different whiskies, the young, the old, the peated, the unpeated. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Seeing the comment from Rick, it is on the shelves in the US. It's in LA and New York now and should come out further. Sadly, it's not in Vienna yet, Todd. We will try and get there soon.
Todd was enjoying an Old Raven in his glass tonight.
Oh, wow.
He got introduced to a whiskey show in Graz.
Nice.
So he's joining us from Vienna. Todd was on our Whiskey Academy. So as was Rick, who is over in San Francisco. He's on the Black Bottle. He's sticking with the blend theme tonight.
That's fantastic.
We have got Willis loves your whiskey cabinet. He missed last week's Blether, so this is his first time. And you need to change your position of your seat because he missed the grand unveiling. You're sitting the wrong side. You
just need to move my big head out of the way. There you go. Next thing I need to fix is my lighting because I need to be like Mariah Carey and just have somebody stand over me with a light because I've got the worst lighting ever. I look like a Scotch person. I'm so pale. If anybody's an electrician on the chat, come around and sort out my lighting for me, please. I've actually got 3 lights on just so you can see me, but it makes me look worse.
That's now I think it's becoming a weekly thing where Kat invites somebody around to her house.
Literally writing down people's names who are tradesmen. I'm like, yep, we'll get you round there. Yep, plasterer. Oh, awesome. We'll get you around.
Is this just a big ruse, Kat, for you to find tradies?
Yeah. Any single guys out there as well, let me know. We'll just get some names.
This Blether is taking a turn.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
I'm sure you'll have lots of volunteers, Kat.
As long as we're not all in oil and gas and play golf. That's all the single men out there. Oil and gas and golfers. I need a bit of variety. Anyway, that's a different chat. Back to the shelf. Thank you, Willis. New shelf.
Speed dating. Welcome to speed dating with Kat. Pop your number in the chat, right? And she'll give you a call. Jeremy, I'm going to go back a couple of minutes to Jeremy. And this was when we were talking about what you were wanting from Ardray, where we were looking for. He's asking, is there a space in the market for big flavor blends? There's not much out there, but is that a commercial decision as you can make more money from single casks if you're selling to that part of the market? I'll pop this on so you guys can read that because that's quite a long question.
I think yes, I totally do. I think for me, flavor, if it's flavor first, whatever that flavor brief is, like the more the merrier. And like, do you know what I mean? Like the more variety for consumers, the better. I do think some of the newer boutique blending houses, I'm not sure if Jeremy has discovered Woven yet, but Woven are a really great, very small sort of blending house that are based in Leith. And they do relatively small kind of releases of different blends, and some of them are sort of, they've really lent into a flavor brief that's maybe, one way, which is really interesting, I think, to sort of add to the conversation.
And then you got stuff like Compass Box, Peat Monster. I mean, that's quite a punchy one. I think to your point, Steph, it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. I mean, we were trying to create something that's got a lot of mouthfeel. So it's big in flavor in that sense. You get a lot on the mouth in terms of texture and creaminess. That's what we were going for, rather than sort of big punchy flavors. I think it depends on what your vision is at the start, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is room in the market. I think what blends tend to do is go more for the kind of more balanced, because I think so much of that big flavor is already dominated by single casks and single malts. I think that's what they do really well. I think what blends do really well is just that kind of something that, when you're looking for something a little bit more balanced, maybe. I remember reading Charlie MacLean sort of once wrote, he said that people who know me well know that when I'm at home or just relaxing, what I drink is blends. Because he really, you get that, not blandness, but you get something that's balanced and has got enough in it, but it's not sort of challenging you. I mean, I have the fortune to work with Lefroy, and you can when someone's opened a bottle of Lefroy, you can smell it across the room, kind of thing.
Yeah, you really can. Yeah.
And that's great, but I think you don't always want that. I think it depends what you want, different times. So
absolutely, yeah.
Nobody drinks one whiskey the whole time. So I think it's different whiskeys for different moments.
And the guys who do, it tends to be a blend that they drink. You've got that kind of school of people who they go to the pub and they have their grouse or their white Mackay, and that's all they'll drink. And I've noticed that as well.
It's funny. Todd is bang on there in the comment where he's saying it's about mood and environment.
Yes,
absolutely it. When we're doing Ardray, I'm asking the blenders, well, what kind of whiskey is this? And the best description I got was from Shinji. He said, this is the whiskey when you sit chatting with friends. He said, because every time he said, what I want to create is something that every time you sip it, you find something. You don't get bored of it. There's something there each time, and it develops and it evolves. He said, but it's not like smacking you around the face each time you're drinking it. He said, it's got to be
certainly not Lefroy,
and evolve. Yeah, exactly. He said it's got to be interesting. It's got to evolve with each sip, but not divert you from the conversation you're having with, your friends. So that, and he said something that everyone in the group can enjoy. So that's kind of a little bit of that sort of almost like Japanese mentality that came into the creation of this.
It's such an important part of drinking whiskey, isn't it? It's who you're drinking with.
Yeah.
If we can get a dram like that sits in, it appeals to everyone. I haven't tried Ardray, but I'm guessing you're picking up subtle hit. If you've got Bowmore and Highland Park and Lefroy in there's going to be a little element of peat in there, but it's not going to be the dominant flavour. So there's something that appeals to those guys who like that. There's going to be your Auchentoshians in there that are nice and kind of elegant and fruity, and so there's going to be something in there for everyone. That's the beauty of a blend.
Yeah. I mean, Steph, you probably enjoy more drams of Ardray with more people than I do, so you could probably speak to how people react to it.
Part of the hazard of the job, I think. But yeah, no, you're right. I obviously being such a new, it's only been in market a little bit of time. So part of my job is talking to whiskey drinkers and doing events and things like that, and trainings for bartenders. But also there's a certain element of me helping support teams get it into new venues, right? We can't share it with whiskey drinkers unless it's available places. So I've been spending some time, so whoever is in charge of curating the list or buying for that venue or things like that. And what I found most interesting is we'll pour a dram, we'll talk about it, we'll taste through it, and then I'll always just kind of leave the bottle there. It's just the type of person I am. I'm just, just leave it there and chat. And I've realized and noticed that actually we'll be sitting and we'll end up talking about other things and whiskies because you're with a whiskey enthusiast, right? So although you're talking about the brand you're talking about, you also end up talking about everything. And then I'll realize that, we've finished a dram or we finished a sample because it's a smulling. And then pretty much 9 times out of 10, the barman or the beverage director will just then go, I'm just going to have another little, and then they'll pour themselves another little dram of Ardray, and then carry on chatting. And for me, that was like the biggest compliment. And when I started to see that happening, I was like, okay, yes, Shinji, he's hit his brief, because it is that moment. It's giving you character, it's giving you things to chat about and like levels to dive into. But it's also just really nicely, part of the conversation rather than dominating the conversation. So yeah, it's great.
You've got some awesome cocktails on your Instagram. I'm like your Instagram stalker, and there's some fantastic serves that I've seen.
I'd love to take credit. I'd love to take credit, but I'm merely a drinker rather than a maker.
They look awesome though. It must be fun finding out, like seeing what bartenders do with it, just kind of giving them a sort of description of like, this is what we have, what can you create from this? And yeah,
100%. Because it is new, that is part of the excitement, I think, because, I know we've talked about Lefroy, but it's the obvious one, but people will have preconceptions about that, and they will have already made cocktails perhaps, and the big smokiness and the salinity and things like that. But yeah, with Ardray, it's unwritten, and so it's their level of artistry, right? So getting bartenders to allow them to explore and kind of make things with it. So it's really exciting to see what they're enjoying as well. And what I think is really nice is that versatility is there. Sitting enjoying it in a dram is beautiful. It's got that character, but it's also got these layers of flavor which bartenders really enjoy exploring as well. So and I think that's it's great. It's a tough job. Someone's got to do it.
Struggle away on a daily basis.
But because I don't have the Ardray, I'm the only one that doesn't. I'm just kind of making a little blend in my belly with all the component parts. I think it's
Did you just say a little blend in your belly? Because that's the cutest thing I think I've ever heard.
Nice.
We'll get Callum to come and judge yours, Mike.
Yeah. You might have to wait for a couple of hours before it comes out.
Judge your belly blend. There's not a lot of peat. Like, I don't get a lot of peat on the nose with Ardray. I mean, I think because I like a peaty dram anyway, so I think I'm maybe a bit nose blind to picking out peat. I don't think I'm so susceptible to it, but
no, it's not. It's got
a heavy peat component in it.
No, it's got one Highland and one Island peated whiskey in it, and we've been it's quite balanced. What I hadn't realised before doing this was that peated whiskey is also really good, not only for obviously the peaty flavours, the smokiness, but also it gives the whiskey a little bit more texture, like in the mouth. And the other thing apparently that peated whiskies do is they act as a bit of a sort of accelerator for the aroma on the nose, because there's more volatile chemicals, so they come off quicker and they help sort of lift the overall aroma. So I hadn't realized like Hibiki and Yamazaki Japanese whiskies both have a peated component in them, but you'd never tell when you taste them. But that's part of the secret to sort of enhancing the overall delivery of the mouthfeel and is to have that little portion of peated in it.
I didn't.
On Ardray, some people get it on the nose, some people get it on the finish. I think it depends on the individual. It's definitely there.
You can get it. Yeah, you can get it. I can taste it. I just can't really smell it. But it's not. For anybody that's not super keen on peat, I wouldn't let a peat content put you off, because it's definitely a very subtle peat.
Yeah, it is.
Smokiness in there. It's really well balanced. It's very yum.
Yeah. So as Steph said, there's like 4 building blocks. So there's the grain, the peat, the bourbon cask, and the sherry cask. So they built those first, and then and then they blend each batch separately. So it's each round is a batch, so it's batch produced.
Okay.
But we also have a double Solera as well.
I was going to say that. Did I read in the box that you had the Solera system? It was a combination of marriages and Solera.
Yeah, double Solera. So there's a Solera on each of the building blocks, and there's a Solera on the final blend. So basically, I mean, I don't know how familiar people are with Soleras, but basically the way we're doing it is for every batch, we have the whiskies from the chosen distilleries, and we dump those and they go into their relevant building blocks. So if you think about, I don't know, we have half the volume already there in a Solera, and we add the same again into that Solera. And then we take from those Soleras into a blend, and we have half of that blend already there from the previous batch. And then we take
a
half.
consistency thing, isn't it? That's keeping the consistency going, yeah.
And then we take half of that and bottle it, but leave half behind. So there's this mixing of every batch with all the previous batches. So you get that, like you say, consistency running through it.
Is that a common thing with blending, or is that something that's quite unique?
It's traditionally very common.
Yeah.
If you go back like 1800s and stuff, the Johnny Walker, original Walkers and Teachers and Chivas and Valentine did it. It's become a little less common in more recent history. But we kind of felt it was important to get that consistency from batch to batch. It's kind of all part of the sort of Japanese precision that's involved in this.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So, yeah.
We've got an interesting question from Dave, who's watching on YouTube. And he said, so he's a malt drinker. And he's asking.
I won't contaminate your glass, Dave, if you don't want me to.
He's still here as well, which is great. 49 minutes later, he's still here. But he's asking, have you had any negativity? And I think it's quite important to be open about that as well.
Yeah, of course. What's interesting, and this is me being completely honest. Any negativity I've had is actually when consumers haven't tried it yet. So they're very strict in their preconceptions and what they believe they like, because there are challenges, as Richard's already said. It's a blend, so the category is already needs some education. The price and the fact that it's non-age statement, you're sitting in a premium price point with a non-age statement in a category which is sort of underloved and underappreciated. So it's got its hurdles already. So I guess the negativity can come at that point because people are kind of coming armed a little bit, ready not to like it, if that makes sense sometimes. Genuinely, and I've done blind tastes and I've done tastes afterwards, and hopefully you can see from the type of person I'm not very much of a hard sell kind of person. If someone doesn't like something, don't drink something else. I'm really I like all whiskey, so I don't mind as long as you're drinking whiskey. But genuinely, the comments where people have sat and tasted it and enjoyed it and got to just experience it for themselves, the character and the elegance are both there, and it's offering the drinking experience it's offering to somebody people really enjoy, and once they've kind of got there, then often people kind of go, oh, actually no, I would spend that on that. I want it, I like it. So yeah, that's the experience I've had. But I get it. Yeah, it's the whole thing of blends and price, and it's like a whole massive conversation, right?
Yeah.
What is the price? What is something worth? It's what you're worth. It's what you think it's worth to you, and you're willing to pay for it, I guess. So.
Yeah, that is a fair point, to be honest. But yeah, it's good that you're like, I think I heard you say to Mitch when you're on Not Another Whiskey Podcast, another advertising, that other, chats are available out there. They're not. But you'd said that like in most blind taste tests, people hadn't picked Ardray out as a blend. They did just assumed it was a single malt. I think that's the importance of blind taste test, because there's whether you know you're doing it or not, you come into it with like a bias, or you look at a color and you make an assumption. So tasting it blind, like my biggest kind of example of that was, I always said to Mike, I don't like sherried whiskey at all. I'm not a fan. And then he brought in some samples to work because we were going to do, he was releasing a shop exclusive. And my favorite was a Pedro Jimenez Kalila. And I was like, damn it, apparently I like sherried whiskies. So it's going to just kind of maybe kind of rethink about, you know, give something a chance. So your blind taste tests are cool.
Yeah. I mean, we've tried to do everything we can to kind of make it a good value for the price it is, but also enjoyable. I mean, it is quite rich in the malt content versus the grain. Like I said, it's 48%. It's non-chill filtered. So, and there's, you know, there's some decent old whiskey in there, 20-year-old. Can't say from which distillery, obviously, but there's some decent.
Can you say where the distillery is?
Yeah.
Can you tell us the 145 distilleries it's not?
So there is a floor malted distillery that's in there as well. So you know, there's some. Hopefully, people, like, you know, Steph said, will find something they enjoy. But we can't convert. You know, we can't convert everyone or get everyone to love it. I mean, that's the joy of whiskey, isn't it? We all have different tastes and enjoy different whiskies. So yeah.
How many whiskies do we have to buy you to find out the name of the 20-year-old distillery?
Too many.
Too many. We've got some comment Todd saying the inability to name a distillery is a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We made a conscious decision not to do it, so we kind of wanted the whiskey to speak for itself rather than it being about what's the ingredient or what's the age. We want the whiskey. You know, I mean, to be honest, all I did was make Stephanie's job harder.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, do you know?
If I told you, I'd have to kill you though, Mike. So
You could have just said no, and then the harassment would have stopped. But yeah, I guess if you said what I would say, and in some distilleries they have a following, some have a cult, some have more than a cult, they have obsession, and if you know, as you say, you don't want it to be about one distillery that's provided this element of it. You want it to be the whole. So completely understand why you wouldn't.
You see that
always
see all the
that,
time.
like, people have preconceptions. So like if you list all the names, people will have preconceptions about those names. So before they've tried it, they'll already have preconceptions.
Does it sound similar to the Master Blender's name?
Sorry?
Does the old whiskey sound similar to
Stop guessing, Mike.
I like the guessing. I think the guessing's kind of fun, which is why I hope it never comes out.
you like it because you know it's never going to come out and it's fruitless. Anyway, guys, we've talked for almost an hour on Ardray, and one of the things it's been great, and the guys at home are getting really involved as well, which is fantastic. But part of the thing about the Blether is we want to get to know you guys as well. So I'm going to pull the conversation away from Ardray. We'll go back there. I'm sure. But let's find out a little bit, you guys. What got you into whiskey? What was that kind of? Do you have an epiphany moment where you thought, actually, whiskey's for me? And if it was, what whiskey was it? We'll go with Stephanie first. Ladies first.
Me first, yeah. So mine's a bit of a, I guess, random story of how I've got here. I have a very visceral memory of this. I always used to visit Scotland every year with my dad. We used to go up different parts every year, and he's a Scotch drinker. And I remember being about 12 and going on a distillery tour, and just that kind of, I remember the smell of it. I remember visiting, and I remember it so vividly and like really nostalgically. So I think I was sort of subliminally hooked, I think, from being far too young. I will say I didn't try it then. It was just me going around. But I do think it's kind of always been this kind of, I don't know, mystical kind of, it was there and I was interested from a very young age. I personally then sort of went off, I went to drama school originally. So I sort of went and trained as an actress, and actress in London actually means waitress, of course. You just don't know that when you go to grammar school. I was just really lucky that I fell into really nice restaurants that are very flavor driven and give you a lot of training on the food, the wine, the spirits list, and all things like that. So it was at that point I started just learning a bit more about cocktails and spirits and flavor in that sort of way. And then, yeah, kind of got there, really. I think in that time when I was in my early 20s, I must admit the marketing didn't make me feel like whiskey was for me. I'm 35 now, so obviously things have changed. But at that young age, although I was interested, I thought, oh, no, I'm not meant to like this. This isn't for me. But luckily from working in the industry and getting into it that way, I was, and things changing, I was like, actually, no, the flavor, you just kind of keep coming back to it, and the stories and, you know, all the trainings I had when I was hospitality. Yeah, you hear these amazing stories from different distilleries and things like that. And then actually I ended up working in English whiskey for about 7 years. So, you know, again, totally different, but it's a very small company. So then you really are hands-on, you know, in the mash tun, digging it out. And when you're, again, getting that kind of real tactile kind of connection with something like that, you can't not love it for the rest of your life, really. So yeah, really checkered past, but now I look back on it, you kind of see this really like red thread where you're like, I didn't stand a chance, I was always going to be obsessed with whiskey.
Awesome. And of course the English Whiskey Company have just won the world's best whiskey.
They did.
With the magazine. So
they did one. And luckily, nice little plug. Thanks, Mike. Ardray also won a gold in its category. So
congratulations, guys. That's awesome.
So buy it now, guys, before that award puts the price up. Buy it now.
Before they sell out overnight. Quick, grab your bottles, guys.
It's crazy how well an award does for some places.
Yeah, it does. It just raises awareness, I think. It's just suddenly a lot of people know about it.
Yeah. I remember it was Glenallec's 10-year-old batch strength, the cast strength releases. I mean, I think it was 3 or 4. Number 4, it was number 4 that won the World Whiskey. And it was just before batch 5 came out. It was like that, the night of or the morning after. And looking at my phone, and this was a time when I was allowed to get my shop sales come through on my phone. I'm not allowed that now because the wife doesn't like the phone pinging all the time. And it just started going off. It was ping, ping, ping. I was like, Glenalec. It's like, my God. And, you know, it was because they'd won the Whiskey of the Year. And then from that point on, every batch, as soon as it hit the shelf, sold out. And it just became this kind of must-have collection. Yeah. And you kind of miss having it on the shelf. You miss being able to pick it up. And it's something like Springbank are going through that at the moment. And you get these kind of distilleries who have these fads. You miss picking it up and showing it to somebody and pouring a dram and saying, you know, do you like it? Do you want to buy it? And that sales pitch. It's so hard to get that when something becomes so sought after.
Yeah.
So hopefully that doesn't happen with, I guess it's a double-edged road. You want it to happen. You want it to sell out all the time. And yeah, it does great. But you also want it to be available to people who want to go back and buy another bottle.
You do.
So, but congratulations on the award. And it was the Blended Scotch Non-Age Statement Award you won.
Yeah.
Gold
medal. Yeah.
Amazing.
Which is
you have to get that displayed somewhere. Do you have did you get like a plaque? Did you get a something?
You get a digital logo you can stick around the place, and that's about it.
Fair enough.
The prizes aren't glamorous.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of
But
categories to get
it's not.
through.
It's
Take
not
all
about the
this
trophy.
breakfast about.
It's not about the trophy, indeed.
Wow.
You
I
just
know,
have
but
to
we like a
trust it.
trophy, don't we?
We do.
So we did an amazing job of going off brand there. And then we're gonna,
You're talking to a brand ambassador, Mike. I can't help it.
Richard, what's
Yeah.
your background? What got you into whiskey?
I mean, the only whiskies around when I was growing up were probably a bottle of Bell's or a bottle of Teacher's lurking at the back of my parents' drinks cabinet, which, if I look back at my parents' drinks cabinet, it was something horrific from the 70s. You know, it was all Advocaat and Cinzano and a bottle of Teacher's.
Martini Rosso.
Yeah, exactly. But I kind of spent the first maybe, 20 years of my career kind of working in more marketing and consultancy. And during that period, I had, for about 5 or 6 years, William Grants were one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And worked a lot with them on the Grants blend. But then one day I was in a meeting with some of their team, and someone offered me a single malt, and I'd never had a single malt in my life. And I was fortunate enough, the first single malt I ever tried was Balvenie 21-year-old Portwood. And needless to say, from that point, I've never looked back. So I kind of then worked in all sorts of different industries. I've worked in frozen food, I've worked in consumer electronics, but always hunting for the opportunity to come into whiskey. And about 10 years ago, got that opportunity. And that's kind of, for me, where it's gone. And I've now got to, I've just become slightly obsessed, I think my wife and kids would say, with whiskey. I just love that exploring. I mean, I don't have a favorite whiskey now. I just love trying different whiskies, different ages of whiskies, different experiences. And I've been really lucky to try some very old whiskey and also, very, interesting whiskey from all around the world. I mean, before Ardray, the project before that was developing a whiskey for the Indian market. So what they call Indian-made foreign liquor. So it's not what we would call whiskey in Scotland, but it's an interesting dram.
And is that kind of one of the molasses-based style
whiskeys? Or neutral grain spirit based, yeah.
Okay.
So almost like a blend of neutral grain spirit and different whiskies.
Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So it's just that one experience of the Balvenie kind of has opened up this sort of magical world.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get enough of it, really.
That's awesome.
Willis at home, he's saying the 70s Bells was his first dram.
Yeah. Now,
it
probably costs you a fortune now to buy a bottle of Bells from the 70s. So you see them on the auction sites, and it's kind of, it's crazy. But there's some interesting stuff out there.
Yeah. I love that you say you don't have a favorite whiskey. People often ask, you guys probably get asked quite often as well, what's your favorite? If we're hosting a tasting or we're doing something, what's your favorite whiskey? I would hate to find the perfect dram, because then you'd stop looking after that. You would just say, well, no, I'm not going to drink another whiskey after this. Willis was on our academy last September, and he actually came twice. I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one he said it, but we were sat at Glenglassaugh and we were having some really old Glenglassaugh. I think the total of 3 drams is about 130 years. So a couple of 40-year-old whiskies in there. And he just sat with a glass and he's like, I don't want to drink another whiskey as long as I live than this. And I can't remember if it was the Burt Forsyth Sherry Casker. And it was such an amazing dram. But then you're like, and he said, but I will. He is going to drink other whiskey. He just didn't want to drink other whiskeys. And
exactly. I mean, I describe myself sometimes as a whiskey shark. It's kind of, sharks, if they stop, they drown. It's kind of, I'm almost the same. I've got to keep swimming through whiskey. Otherwise, I'm done in. So I love to try different whiskies.
I love it. I am Stealing that. I love
That
that.
has to be your. That should be your Instagram. The whiskey
It
shot.
is.
It is his Instagram. I was like, literally plugging your Instagram handle.
I'm learning from you, Steph. I'm learning from you.
After I said it, I was like, wait, I think that might be his Instagram. To be honest.
I just need to find a cheaper way of being able to try different whiskies. It's like buying whole bottles is really expensive.
Yeah, you've got a poster who regularly delivers 40 samples at a time. So
Luckily, I didn't have to pay for those ones.
true. Yeah, you got paid for that. That's even better.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy during COVID. I sat there and I did post a picture, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, and I've got 10 different like Glencairn nosing glasses out in front of me, and it's like all my friends going, "Seriously, do you get paid to do this?" It's like, it doesn't look like work.
Yeah,
No.
honestly, that's what all my friends say to me, Richard.
Yeah, it must be tough though, because you must get that fatigue and that days where you're just like, it's just not clicking. You're not, and because I guess nosing and sampling and blending, it is an art. So you get painters who wake up and there's just no spark. Authors find that block and there's just nothing coming out. You get that when you're doing that blending where it's just nothing's working for you in that particular day. It might be a mood or you didn't sleep well or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the blenders do. I mean, definitely for me, I get, yeah. If you've got 10 different samples in front of you, I start to, you've got to take a walk away. You've got to come back. I mean, there's all the old tricks of, sniffing your elbow to try and reset your nasal passages and all of that. But yeah, there's a certain amount. Also, I mean, I'm no good at spitting the whiskey. I just can't do it.
It doesn't
like,
feel right, does it?
It's like the opposite of a sort of gag reflex. I have to, if I've got whiskey, I have to swallow it. It's kind of, yeah. But I've worked in different industries. So I used to work in frozen foods like battered fish. And I have to say, doing tastings of whiskey is a lot preferable to doing tastings of multiple different battered fish. So yeah.
I'd love to see the sample set up at 11 o'clock in the morning of battered fish, like just little wee fish fingers.
Yeah, it is. It's literally 11 plates of battered fish.
So is it all different types of batter or different types of fish or?
Different weights, different breadcrumb recipes, you name it, you get to try it.
Wow.
It doesn't sound like a bad job. I do like a bit of fish and chips.
Yeah. But again, it's yeah.
Oh, I love it. That's brilliant. It might be a great whiskey pairing, battered fish and whiskey.
Fish fingers and whiskey.
Sushi and whiskey goes quite well.
Yeah, you do like a whiskey luge as well. You could just, do like a whiskey luge with fish fingers. And
actually, I was the best luge I've seen is I went to our American distillery, the Knob Creek and Jim Beam distillery, and one of the founding family there, the youngest member, the 8th generation of the founding family there, does a wonderful ham luge. So a cooked ham, and they carve a channel down the ham, and they pour the ham in at one end, and you drink off the other, and it's like doing those fat infused whiskeys. People do those kind of things, but you just have the whiskey running over the ham, the cooked ham, and you drink off the other end. Oh, that was brilliant.
I'd love the idea of just shouting like, "Bring out the ham," and just
He was sort of carrying it around like a haggis in Scotland, but it was a ham. And everyone got to pour the whiskey in at one end or the bourbon and drink off the other. So it felt very Kentucky, which was fantastic.
That's
It does
awesome.
sound. Kat, I've got a problem with your Ardmore legacy. Not your one, but
I mean, that is quite the problem. Do you know what? I'm over there next week.
I didn't get a box with mine either. So that the Ardmore is going to have to wait. It's going to be a Bowmore next, which we can manage. Rick has asked the both of you, what are your desert island drams?
Oh
You're not allowed to say Ardray.
no. Don't worry.
My question is it like Desert Island Disc where I'm allowed 8?
I guess so, yeah.
Because that's still really hard. That's still really hard.
Yeah, he's got bottles with an S on it, so it's plural, yes.
Yeah. Oh.
James just said with a broken cork, go to a commercial. I'd rather just go to a different bottle. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if I am allowed a few, I'd obviously go for a bit of variety. You're saying I'm not allowed, RJ?
You're not allowed, Ard. I mean, if you're picking 8, we could probably allow it.
I do get asked this a lot, of course, and like, what's your favorite dram and things like that. And my usual answer is whichever one you're buying me, because I like Richard do like to try new things all the time. Okay, Rick's saying 3. Okay, no, that's fair, Rick. That 3 seems fair. It's still really hard.
I guess it depends. Where's the desert island? If it's in Hawaii or if it's off the coast of Scotland, different drams would be needed.
I know. Yeah, I know what one of mine would be. First one, I would go for Lefroy 10 Sherry Oak.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice meaty whiskey, but that sherry finish in it is just, I'm like you, Kat. I'm not a big fan of heavily sherried, heavy tannin whiskies, but somehow in Lefroy, the smokiness and the fruitiness of Lefroy kind of marries up quite nicely. So that would be one of mine.
That would be nice down a ham. I reckon that would be well down a ham.
That's the real test, Kat. That's the real test.
Or if you're on an island down a sort of raw fillet of fish,
Do you know, I lived next to an island where they put wild boar out. There was a shooting estate I worked for, and the laird's son decided he was going to fill the neighbouring island with wild boar. They destroyed the place in about 3 days, so they just had like a mass wipeout of them. So we could technically do the Lefroy and ham over there.
Yeah. Definitely Lefroy. Actually, one of the other whiskies I would have is actually a blend that is no longer made. But you can still get it on auction sites, which is Bailey Nickel Jarvie.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever tried that. Bailey Nickel Jarvie, BNJ on the label. It's it's a really nice blend, really well balanced. Just like to your point, Steph, having a little mix of 3. I think the Lefroy is quite a hearty dram. The Bailey Nickel is just that easy kind of. I could see sitting on the beach at sunset drinking a glass of that. It would be quite nice.
Nice.
Only £400 a bottle for a BNJ.
You can get them for less on the auctions.
That's a retailer that's got it on there, but
yeah.
You can imagine the auctions you'll get.
Yeah. Sadly, they discontinued it about 1994, but it's a beautiful dram. What else?
So I'll start a couple of mine. My I again trying to get range. I'd probably go. My like safety one would be actually a Johnny Green label. That's like a quaffable, safe. It's like a hug in a glass. Like it's one of again an early one I tried in my career. And something I come back to all the time, and I think is great value. You know what it is, and yeah, that would be one of mine probably if I'm not allowed Ardray. And then if I wanted something kind of a little bit more challenging, and one I'm really enjoying at the moment is a Finnish company called and I always pronounce it wrong, Kiro or Cairo. KYR, you know what I mean. I've never been able to pronounce it right. But their wood smoke, I really enjoy. it is more challenging, but I find it really Moorish, and I really enjoy it. I was tempted to also say another Lefroy, but I was worried we'd seem too on brand, because I tried Lefroy Elements 1 the other day, and it genuinely was just like absolutely mind blowing. But I won't take another Lefroy. I'll go Kiro.
Okay.
And then I really like Craigellachie. As one of my single malts that I go back to and just really love.
I can't decide between two for my last one. So recently, two I've discovered recently. One is can't believe I haven't had it before, which is Clynelish 14.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lovely dram. And then
really
the other one is
oily and thick and waxy.
Yeah.
Lovely. It's probably the most distinct mouthfeel of any core-range whiskey I've tried.
Yeah. And then the other one is an English single malt called Wireworks from White Peak Distillery.
Mm-hmm.
And they are, I don't know what they're doing, but they are making young whiskey taste like old whiskey. It's fantastic. I mean, it's really high quality stuff, and it's just really interesting. It's all small batch, but there's some really interesting whiskies that they're putting out.
I'll second that. I really like what Wireworks are doing. Obviously, having worked in English whiskey, I'm big fans of Wireworks. Like what they're doing is great.
They do a lightly peated one called Alter Ego, which I think is just a great single malt. So yeah,
I haven't tried any English whiskey. To my shame, I haven't tried any English whiskey yet, but there's not a lot of I can't. Okay, maybe I'm not looking for it, but I haven't seen it really in shops and things. So
I don't think it's allowed above the border, Kat.
when England starts selling Iron Brew, we'll start selling English whiskey.
Exactly. Hey, we sell haggis down here, so come on, we're taking one step.
I once had a lady come into the shop, Mike's shop, and she came in and says, I've never seen such a fantastic range of English whiskey anywhere. And I kind of looked around, I was like, we don't sell any English whiskey. She's like, well, British whiskey, it's all the same. I'm like, do you mean Scottish whiskey?
I'm surprised you didn't throw her out.
Was she a tourist?
She wasn't from up here anyway, but but I was dumbfounded for a second. I don't think we've got any English whiskey in here, but but it was fine. I did get it. I appreciated that it was a compliment.
Yeah. When we opened the shop, which is nearly 9 years ago now, we took in the English whiskey company, the Norfolk St George's Distillery, their rum cask. I think it was a 7-year-old rum cask. We took in one case of it when we opened. We wanted to try and mix it up a little bit. And it took us about 4 years to sell one case. And one bottle was bought by a group for a stag do, because the stag was a massive whiskey fan and very kind of Braveheart in his beliefs. He was one of these kind of absolute independence, everything has to be Scotland, all that. So they bought him an English whiskey for his stag party. And the other one we opened for a blind world whiskey tasting. We've skirted around it. And it's not because I don't like it, but I think we have to get in things that sell, and unfortunately we're being as far up as we are, we don't have that kind of major tourist drive. And some guys, we're actually just away to take in Filey Bay whiskey. So they're going to be hitting ourselves soon. We've agreed a date for a tasting with them. They're coming up in the first weekend of May, which coincides with Speyside Whiskey Festival. So that's going to be fun. But so guys, if you want to come to the shop and have a taste of some Filey Bay English whiskey, let's give that a bash. Don't be scared to try it. It's the awards are picking up, and the quality, guys at Bimber and Lakes and all that are getting huge accolades for the whiskey. So
there's some incredible whiskies coming up all around the world. I mean, someone told me yesterday there's over 300 distilleries in France. I mean, there's incredible amounts of whiskey being made all over the world.
It's fun, and a lot of people, and I think there's whether it's self-imposed, but there is a naivety from Joe Public. I think the whiskey guys get it, but Joe Public thinks all whiskey is Scottish, and there's that. They can't. Why? How can they call it whiskey? Because it's made in England or Japan or in America or whatever. And you have to have that kind of friendly conversation as well. No, we make Scotch. It's a style of whiskey.
Yeah.
Japanese whiskey is a style of whiskey. Italian whiskey. It's and you have to have that conversation. It's the same as, vodka. Maybe vodka's a poor experience, but you get potato vodka, you get grape vodka, you get all manner of different types of that, and they have their categories. And Scotch is just okay. It's probably the biggest in terms of global value, but it's one style of whiskey that we make.
Definitely.
And I guess the Irish would contest it. They were the first to do it as well. So I always believed that the Irish were just too drunk to write down a recipe, whereas we thought we could make money off of this, and that's how we started doing. There's a lot of that history that people don't understand or choose to ignore as well.
There's some great stories. The Scotch going around the world. One of my favorites is one of our brands is Teachers, and the Teachers family, when they were running that, at one point they rather than have to pay to store their whiskey in warehouses, they put casks of whiskey on ships as ballast.
They did.
And then sold it as Teachers Australian bonded whiskey, because it had gone to Australia and back, and then sold it, which I think was brilliant.
I love the Teacher story. I love the fact that they have kept, and like all the guys on the chat who've been part of the academy, Richard, you'll seen it as well. The museum, the archive room at Ardmore, like the teachers, the distillery didn't throw out anything. It's one of the best kept archives in any Scotch brand. It's such a fantastic story. I love the Teacher story.
William
and,
Teacher, the founder, was phenomenal as a guy. He was absolutely phenomenal. When I love it, back in the 1800s, his dram shops, you weren't allowed to get drunk.
You weren't at all. You are literally, you're giving away my script, Richard. But you're right. He had, do you know what it was? It was to try and fight the prohibition, the sort of temperance movement. There was a temperance movement at the time. And it was to keep the dram shops open. He made everybody adhere to these really strict rules. So you weren't allowed to stand your hand. You weren't allowed to get drunk. You weren't allowed to sit down and like sort of while away the hours. You ordered your dram, you drank it in an orderly fashion, and you left like a gentleman. And that's how they rode through this temperance movement, just through this really canny kind of sort of quiet way of skirting around.
Smoking them either.
You weren't allowed to smoke.
Sounds like when the pubs reopened after COVID, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a little bit. You'd stand outside in a dome in a beer garden.
Don't talk to anyone. Don't sing. Don't stand up.
I know, but it's such a fantastic brand. And I always say, like, when I was growing up, I worked in a grocery shop when I was at university to pay my way through university. And all the mannies, all the sort of workmen and farmers that came in on a Friday night to buy their dram, it was always a bottle of Teachers they bought. And now you can't get it because, of course, all Teachers kind of like it's so big in India and Brazil. So you kind of struggle to get it in Scotland. But it was just the dram that everybody had in their cupboard at home. It was just such a well-known Aberdeenshire brand. But it's a fantastic whiskey. I think Todd had mentioned further up in the chat, actually, how much he enjoyed Teachers as well. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
I think he was in India at the time, when he was drinking it.
That's right, yeah. And one of the highest malt contents, along with Ardray, of course. So nice warm back.
Yeah.
What is the malt content? Sorry, of Ardray?
Roughly half and half.
Okay. Which is exceptionally high for a blended Scotch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I probably shouldn't have said that, but you've been pushing me all night. I had to give something away.
See, I know
half and half is enough. We all take that.
I know the questions I'm allowed to ask. I'm not allowed to ask, and then Mike, you just keep asking them all. So I'm like, nah, I'm not staying quiet for that one.
It's not nasty cop.
Yeah, I don't know I don't get privy to the information that I'm not allowed to ask for.
This is why I was really excited about this chat, but also slightly nervous. I'm like, I'm gonna share my internet with that. Just like, no, sorry, I can't hear you guys.
You could just pretend the internet went. I was like, did Mike ask that? Really? He didn't ask that.
Yeah.
I want to ask Stephanie a question about the Our Whiskey Foundation. You were a mentee last year, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So last January I was a mentee, and actually it's the reason I found this job. So
I wanted to ask you off the back of that.
Yeah, so yeah, massive. I'm a massive advocate also for for the mentorship, because I had worked in English whiskey and in various jobs for a long time, and I knew I was ready for a change, but I wasn't sure what that was. And coming from a really small independent, sometimes you're not totally sure what your transferable skills are or what your next move is, and all things like that. And the mentorship was amazing and just really helpful to be able to, for me to understand what skills I have, what I wanted to do as well, not even just what I could do, but what I wanted to do. And Becky and Millie, who've created the foundation, have made this amazing network, global network really now, because it's been going a few years of women who've gone through the mentorship. And so there's essentially, people post when they see jobs or they hear of jobs. Everyone's really, seen this might be right for people or whatever. And the job came up. It was really cryptic at the time, of course, because there was still a press embargo, like we say, an embargo on it, because of course it wasn't launched. So it was like really cryptic, the job ad, but it kind of hit all of my things that I was interested in. So applied for it definitely with that kind of inner saboteur, that thinking, oh, I'm definitely not going to get it because I'm not going to be good enough. As we all have when you go for jobs that you really want. Wonderful Andrea Montague, who's the head of advocacy for Edrington, interviewed me, and the rest is history, as they say.
That's awesome. It's such a fantastic concept, that the Our Whiskey Foundation, and I've loved seeing. I think because they're coming up towards maybe applications for like next year, so I think they've been kind of doing like little wee bios about everybody that's just graduated, and so I love seeing like their story and like what they look to achieve and like what they have achieved from it. I think it's just such a fantastic idea. And I think I was just going to Richard, you were a too, weren't you? There's so many people out there that connected to that as well. People that I recognize on Instagram or distilleries are like, oh my god, I didn't know you were part of that too. But sorry, Richard, you were a mentor for it too.
I was a mentor. It's a fantastic initiative that Becky and Millie have set up. Really, really worthwhile, and the people coming through it are fantastically talented. Wholeheartedly support that.
It kind of comes back to what I said earlier. When I was much younger, unfortunately, you don't always see yourself in the industry, and I think it has changed and it is changing. And I think what Our Whiskey does is really help to change that and kind of make it much more open, because we know once you're in the whiskey community, that actually it is a community, and there's all different types of people from all different backgrounds, and you realize, but sometimes it hasn't always translated in the marketing. So I think they're doing really great initiatives, and helping create like a whole library of like photos that brands can use, which means that there is more varied people in them and all things like that. I think it's really great. And just as a plug, they've got a fabulous collection coming up called the Demeter collection, and it's essentially one of one, these amazing bottles, some like 40-year-old like incredible single cask, and like just the collection is nuts. And it goes live, I believe, tomorrow, and all proceeds will be going to the Our Whiskey, so people can really like get some moments of history and support a good thing at the same time. So
yes,
definitely. I think there's a Lafroig in there as well, isn't there? In the collection.
There's also Wireworks have got a bottle in there. It's bottle 1 of cask 1.
Yeah,
which is pretty special.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So,
Yes, check it out, everyone. There's some fantastic whiskey because they've been teasing it slightly across their socials as well. The different kind of lots that you can bid for. So there's some amazing whiskey in there. I think Rachel's put up
anywhere near the level of One of One.
sorry,
what's
Mike?
that, sorry?
I said if it gets anywhere near the level of One of One, then it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Success.
I mean, that's a fantastic thing too. The One of One auction. It's amazing. The whiskey that goes through there and the money that they raise for that cause.
Yeah.
I think it just gets bigger every year, doesn't it? And of course, with Bimore's big kind of record-breaking amount.
It's scary watching the bidding. I don't know if you've ever watched the live bidding on the Distillers One of One, but it's kind of people sat around tables, sort of had lunch, and people on the phone, and the bids are going in for these lots, and it goes like 160,000, 180,000, 200,000, and then someone goes 260,000. It's like, you didn't have to jump that far, Oh, just another £60,000. Like, how?
Crazy. It doesn't sound like real. I know it doesn't sound like real numbers when they get that big, does it? It's just like Monopoly money. It's just, it's crazy, isn't it?
The last auction I went to physically, when I was sitting, there was a hotel was closed down, and we were bidding for. I think they had a few bottles of whiskey, but it was more for furniture things. And I'm skimping over a £5. I'm like, will I bid that extra £5 for that table? Don't know. It's pushing the budget. And then somebody comes along with 60 grand. It's like, just slap it down. On you go.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I know.
The other half live.
But a great cause.
Yeah. Cool.
We have Sandro back in after last week's chat. He's saying, good evening, dear Kat, Mike, and your guests, Stephanie and Richard. Thoroughly enjoying this evening. Ciao from Milan.
Wow.
Milano. So we've reached as far as Italy, all the way over to San Francisco as well. If you're from further afield, guys, let us know. If you're further east than Italy, or you're further
it would be interesting to see where everybody is actually tuning in from, because we've got some of our regulars, we know where they're from, but it'd be interesting to see where everybody's actually situated. That'd be quite good. And James is on the Ardray last night. They've just released their inaugural spirit, have they not? Ardray, I think, potentially.
It's being released.
Being released.
Has it been released? Is it out?
Okay.
I don't know.
I saw something on their Instagram. I think it was maybe a countdown to the release of their spirit on their Instagram the other day.
Yeah. I know it's coming. I don't think it's out yet. But James is, and I think James has gone back to it's May. He's saying Ardray is in May.
Okay.
But when we're talking about world whiskies and new countries doing it, because he's saying there's too much whiskey, he needs to stay in control. And his next new one is going to be the Ardray, I think is what he was done. Dave Hager says he's not a snob, but there's far too much whiskey in Scotland for him to look anywhere else. I get that. We've got Vienna is much further east than Milan, says Todd. Todd's claiming
it's not a competition.
It's not a competition. It's friendly interest that was piqued by that. Alistair's watching from Dornoch Castle Hotel. Drams ahoy. Wow. What a great place to be, Alistair. Hopefully it's pleasure you're up there, because I know you travel quite a lot for work. James is in Rhode Island off the coast of Ireland. Dave Hankerson is in Bridge of Dawn, so I think he
not
went
as excited.
So if you don't know, Bridge of Dawn is a suburb of Aberdeen, so it's about 15 minutes drive from myself, so not far at all.
I think Dave's probably the most easterly on this chat in both location and just Scottishness. I reckon Dave's winning for
The guys, what's next for our I was going to say what's next for Ardray? What's next for Ardray in terms of is this Is this it? Is it the one expression, and that is what we're getting to enjoy, or is there plans to maybe do a cask strength release, a sherry cask release, or whatever? Is there plans in the future for the brand?
There will be plans in the future. Yeah, we've got. I mean, at the moment, we literally launched in 4 cities, so we've got a lot of expanding to do. We want to try and get it in more places. Hopefully, this year you'll start to see it in like travel retail and different places around the world. So that'll be really exciting. But yeah, there is some of the blend sitting in some interesting casks in Scotland. Maybe a cask of Japanese origin, for example, that we're just allowing to mature gently. So there will be other things coming along as well. Awesome. But at the moment, it's early days for the brand and the whiskey. So we're just trying to focus on getting the core one out there and getting it, into more people's glasses so they can try it and see where we go from there.
What is your most successful market? Where is really taken to Ardray?
Well, I mean, literally, we launched in London in June last year. Then we went to Shanghai and then LA and New York in sort of November last year. So we've probably got a little bit of a bigger presence in America so far, but it's only 2 cities in a very big country. So I think it's hard to say where is most successful at the moment. We seems to be working in all of them at the moment, but we kind of just want to keep growing slowly, and just get it out there so more people can try it. As I say, but you can buy it direct online, or and hopefully we'll open that up to more countries in Europe as well. Even if it's not in bars in Europe, we'll get more places. And yeah, we won't forget San Francisco, Rick. Don't worry. We'll work our way up that coast.
You can go into the Highlander in Craigellachie and get a dram of it as well. I was really pleased to find it sitting behind the bar one day. I'd gone in for a work with them.
Yeah.
So
we're getting some great. I mean, thanks to Steph and her colleagues in the different cities, we're getting some great sort of locations taking it on. This month we've got a listing in Claridge's in London in their Painters Bar. They're doing 4 different Ardray cocktails, which is fantastic. We're a brand that nobody knows, and yet they've kind of taken it on and created a special menu. So it's fantastic.
Cool. That's awesome.
That's cool.
I love how people are willing to do that and take on an extra. It's an extra commitment, not just to taking in the whiskey, but to do that.
Yeah,
and make a thing of it. And I guess that's what people kind of sometimes in hospitality. It's and I know having a pub as well, and you get a new brand and you're like, yeah, okay, give me a bottle, and it just goes in the back shelf and that's it. And you just kind of you get that mindset. Well, if it's that good, it's going to sell itself. But you need to emphasize what it is and tell the story. And it goes back to when we're talking about whiskey being a community drink and you drink it with friends. So much of that is the story behind it. Who put it together and why and where does it come from? And that's a great thing for us to know as bartenders, to be able to tell people, because that's what gets it in the glass, isn't it?
I still have to pinch myself when I see it on a shelf, because I still can't believe it, that it's kind of like after 3 years of working on this and then like bringing on people, like bringing Steph in, and it's kind of like you feel like responsible. It's like, oh my God, people have like given up jobs to come and work on this whiskey that we've created. It's like, oh shit. But it is a kind of pinch yourself moment when you sit there in a bar and you look up and that's the bottle that you spend hours having debates over, how pointy should the label be, and it's there on a shelf. I'm not joking. We did argue about how pointy the labels were.
I completely believe you. I wanted to ask you about the bottle, though. I love it. Go and tell us about the bottle, the thinking behind it, and how and why that's pointy. Like how pointy and why that pointy.
So the point is, the diameter of the point is 0.75 of a millimeter. So that's how detailed we got. It's not 1 millimeter. because that wasn't precise enough, and it's not 0.5 because that was too sharp. So it's 0.75. So that's the level we got to of geekery on this one. But yeah, the bottle is really just trying to tell the story of the whiskey. So the whiskey is all about this sort of Scotland and Japanese sort of marriage. It even says something like that on the bottom. But the idea is that different parts of the bottle tell different parts of the story. So at the top on the neck here, there's this funny sort of A shape. That actually comes from the founder of Suntory, Shinjiro Tori, wrote notes for his autobiography. And in that, he talked about this. He wrote a whole passage about trying to map out a path for the future or other people to follow. And he stuck a picture in next to it of these rail tracks disappearing over the horizon. And so working on this project with me was his great grandson. And he was looking through these notes because we were talking about where the history of this whiskey came from and this join up between Scotland and Japan, and the idea that we wanted to put something out there that was kind of a bit of a beacon, for blended Scotch. And he found this picture and he was like, well, this is what my great grandfather was writing about. He was inspired by Scotch and Scotch blends. So we took that, and that kind of became the emblem for the brand. And that sort of got us to thinking about the label. So that the label is all representing sort of the precision of Japan. That's why you've got that vertical name and a triangle, because it's a sort of more precise shape. But then the bottle itself, and it's hard to tell, you can see it's sort of rippled. And it's got this sort of wonderful texture on it. That's designed to represent the two main ingredients of Scotch: water and barley. So it's either water running in a stream or barley blowing in a field. And that's all about this sort of the character, the energy, the liveliness of Scotch whiskey. So you've kind of got the precision of Japan and the liveliness of Scotch whiskey all on one bottle.
That's cool. That's a beautiful bottle.
And then the little footnote label is really a kind of a nod to sort of traditional Scotch. So on there, you've got things like the release. So each batch has got a release year on it. You got the ABV and all of the usual gubbins you get on a whiskey label. So yeah, that's the story of the bottle. But yeah, one little geek fact is there are actually 16 different bottles in the glass bottles.
Oh, really?
Because when we make the glass, you have 16 molds in the machine. And the mold has the ripple on it, but there's like this stippling on the glass. It's like a sandy texture. The only way we could work out how to do that was to get one man with a hammer and a metal punch to tap it in. So each of the molds was done by hand and is slightly different. So that's why there are effectively 16 different glass versions of the glass bottle.
They're like snowflakes. So we've all got individual bottles. That's nice. I like that. You
have to collect them all, though, Kat.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell because it's like they're literally millimeters.
Well, we've sold one to Dave Ferguson when we get into the shop. He says he's going to take a bottle when we get it in. So let's make that happen soon. Absolutely.
It was worth it just for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you did cover it. Willis is asking, is the core Ardray blended at birth, so to speak, or after maturation? I think we did speak. It's a mix of ages, so it has to be blended after maturation, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, everything is matured to different ages, matured separately, and then you blend, like we said, those building blocks, and then you blend the building blocks into the final blend. So it becomes a blend, after maturation. We then marry the blend for about 4 months before we bottle it, just to let everything properly mingle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think we've kind of covered everyone's questions in the chat. Unless anyone has anything else to say from the chat, I'm just having a quick scroll back. Talk amongst yourselves, guys. I'll have a look.
I'm pleased Dave said he'll take a bottle. So I'm sure earlier on he said he was a malt guy. So
he did. Yeah.
That's true. You well and truly converted a hardened malt drinker. That's pretty good going, to be honest. And he now follows you
So
both on
even-
Instagram. There
Yeah,
you go.
There you go.
it's
Now
only
it's
taken,
worth it. Now
it's
So
it's
I
only
worth
can
taken us
pepper
2
you.
hours to convince him. But
You can have the weekend off, Stephanie. We've got you.
Done.
You've hit your quota, 1 bottle and 1 follower on Instagram. That's my weekend done. Mic drop. Off we go.
Nailed it.
Love it.
Nailed it.
Rick has just said it's been a fascinating blether. He's looking forward to his first Ardray. He's away to head off. So thanks, Rick. We'll catch you again very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
I was going to ask, and I don't think we covered the name Ardray, where that came from. What's the origin of that?
it's linked into the story. So Ard is Gaelic for high, and Ray is obviously ray of light, and it's this idea of being a beacon for blended Scotch.
Cool.
So Ardray.
So that triangle almost represents a lighthouse almost as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does in a way. Yeah, it's got there's a lot of sort of symbolism in it as well.
Nice.
That's what we spent 3 years talking about on Zoom calls whilst during COVID.
yeah, you actually put the blend together in the first week. It was the other, the other 3 years that it was the marketing and the branding.
Yeah. The other thing probably just to mention is the carton. We have this wonderful artwork on it, which is by a lady called Leah Melia, who we commissioned to try and capture that sort of energy and character of Scotch whisky. So that's the artwork that is wrapped around the box, which is really quite lovely as well.
The box reminds me of like when you see a barley park, when it's just before they harvest it, and like it's just like the barley kind of swaying in the wind. Like it has that weird kind of sea-like swishiness. That's what it reminds me of, which I like.
Yeah,
it's really cool. I saw you, Stephanie, you were at an amazing gallery doing like an immersive art whiskey thing the other day. Like it looked really, really cool. It looked great fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the fun job that I get to do is kind of bringing this to life, right? It's what ambassadors get to do is kind of bring these stories to life. So that kind of art of blending and artistry kind of gives me a great vehicle to kind of do some stuff a little bit different and kind of creative. So yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. I think art and whiskey come together quite a lot. Whiskey and food and whiskey and art seems to come together quite a lot. It just seems to be natural.
Natural.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Good fun. I think, did we get all the questions, Mike?
Yes. Yeah, there was nothing else to come out. Apart Sandro has just popped up. You mentioned, Richard, about the 4 months of marrying. When it's marrying, do you just leave it to kind of do its own thing? There's no rolling or stirring or anything like that.
No, it's just we leave it in a cask, just to get to know each other. All the different whiskies get to know each other in the cask. I didn't believe it made any difference. I thought you mix them and that's it. But we've actually experimented, and I've tried the same blend at 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and the flavor develops. It's incredible.
Really? Okay.
It's not maturing. It's just the whiskeys, I don't know, maybe they're just not that friendly to begin with, and they take a little bit of time to mix, but it is incredible.
Maybe it's just like a group of lads like playing rugby on the pitch, or a group of lads like stewing together in a small changing room. You're just adding that extra.
What a picture.
It's the way my brain works.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've gone from asking for a single lad to a very small room with a group of lads. We go full circle.
Sweaty as well,
That's my Friday night sorted.
Yes. It's a very specific ask, I think, Kat.
It is quite, but the internet's a crazy place. You don't ask, you don't get. But
Indeed.
So there we go. That's how marrying a maturation process works. Like a big group of stewy rugby players in a changing room. Summed that up for you there.
Dave says you need to get out more.
You don't know the half of it, honestly. Let's sort that.
Before we put Cat's World to right. We're going to let the Joe public go back to whatever it is they do in a Thursday night after a Blether. Probably look forward to the Aquavite Barflies. Guys, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. What a great chat, great fun. It's been and not only has it been fun, it's been education as well. We've learned so much about the blending process and something we don't really talk about much. Being a whiskey shop, we sell 90% malts. So it's really cool to see the start of the process and how the ideas work and where you go to get to where you are. I can't wait to stock it. I can't wait to taste it. And
fantastic.
I'll let you know what I think when we do get it in.
Yeah, please do.
Guys, thank you so much. And the guys at home, thanks again. We wouldn't be here without you. Please.
A real pleasure. Thanks.
Joining in.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
No problem at all.
No worries.
Just before you go, Kat, who's on next week? Who are we blethering to?
So I've had a cancellation, so it's to be confirmed. I'm just going to do some frantic searching between now and next week.
No.
So, yeah. If you guys know anybody that wants to be on the chat, also just fire them my way, please. That would be awesome. But yeah, if you want to come back, also great. We'll just do it all over again.
So come back next week where we'll discuss the intricacies of the recipe that makes up our drink.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Guys, so we will see you next week. Who with? Who knows? We'll let you know as soon as we do. So thank you so much, Richard, Stephanie. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it. And we will see you all again, if not next week. Hopefully before, either online or in the shop. I've got an empty glass now, but I'll say flanger all the same.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye, guys.